Hello and welcome to Indus News Live from Islamabad. I'm Hira Mustafa and these are the headlines. President Joe Biden has suspended drone strikes outside of war zones where U.S. forces are deployed. The Pentagon says any drone strikes against terrorist groups outside Afghanistan, Iraq, or Syria will require approval from the White House. The move reverses former President Donald Trump's policy, who had given the military free rein in countries like Somalia. The United States says it is too early to say how Afghan peace talks are going. At a news briefing, State Department spokesperson Ned Price said Washington continues to encourage all sides to take part constructively in the talks and believes this is a moment when progress is possible. He said U.S. Special Envoy Zalmay Khalilzad would be based in Doha for some time to support the peace process. The Arab coalition says it has intercepted another armed drone launched by Yemen's Houthis towards southern Saudi Arabia. Saudi state media says the explosive-laden drone was aimed at Homs Mushaid city. The latest strike comes after the U.S. called on the Yemeni rebels to stop attacking and start negotiating for peace. The global number of coronavirus cases has crossed 117 million, with the death toll approaching 2.6 million. The UK recorded its lowest number of infections and deaths in 5 months, with 65 fatalities and some 4,700 cases overnight. Meanwhile, Mexico's death toll has surpassed 190,000, while its infection tally has crossed 2.1 million. Pakistan has reported over 1,300 new cases and 50 more deaths overnight, with a death toll over 13,200. And in football, Chelsea continued their impressive turnaround as they beat Everton 2-0 in their Premier League encounter. The win leaves the Blues in 4th place with 50 points, 2 ahead of 5th place West Ham, who dominated Leeds United 2-0. Well, these were the headlines. News in detail coming after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now the news in detail. President Joe Biden has suspended drone strikes outside of war zones where U.S. forces are deployed. The move reverses former President Donald Trump's policy, which gave the military free rein in countries like Somalia. The Pentagon says any drone strikes outside Afghanistan, Iraq, or Syria will require approval from the White House. At a news conference, Pentagon spokesperson John Kirby termed the measure interim guidance. Kirby said it was issued to ensure that the president has full visibility on proposed significant actions. However, he said the decision is not permanent and does not mean a cessation of strikes. Kirby added Washington is committed to working with global partners to counter the persistent threat of extremism. The United States says it is too early to say how the Afghan peace talks are going. This was stated by State Department spokesperson Ned Price at a news briefing. Ned Price said the U.S. continues to encourage all sides to take part constructively in the talks, as this is the moment when progress is possible. Price said U.S. Special Envoy Zalmay Khalilzad would be based in Doha for some time to support the peace process. He added Washington will continue to diplomatically engage with the parties to support the intra-Afghan dialogue. He said the U.S. has been interested throughout to find the means to quell violence. UK's Chief of Defence Staff General Nicholas Patrick Carter has lauded Pakistan's continuous efforts for peace and stability in the region. He acknowledged Pakistan's efforts in a meeting with Pakistan's Army Chief General Qamar Javed Bajwa in Rawalpindi. According to the military's media wing, matters of mutual interest, including the Afghan peace process and defense cooperation, were discussed during the meeting. Both sides discussed the evolving global geostrategic environment. General Carter also pledged to further enhance bilateral relations between both countries. The Arab coalition says it has intercepted another armed drone launched by Yemen's Houthis towards southern Saudi Arabia. Saudi state media says the explosive-laden drone was aimed at Homs Mushaid city. The latest strike comes after the U.S. called on the Yemeni rebels to stop attacking and start negotiating. In a briefing, State Department spokesman Ned Price said the Houthis must demonstrate their willingness to engage in a political process for peace in Yemen. Price said the U.S. remains deeply concerned by the frequency of Houthi attacks on Saudi Arabia. Meanwhile, in a tweet, Houthi spokesperson Yahya Sari said the group has again launched missiles at the Aba International Airport. However, Riyadh is yet to comment on this development. Iran has started enriching uranium with the third cascade of advanced IR-2M centrifuges. The International Atomic Energy Agency said the enrichment is being carried out at an underground plant at the Natanz facility. In a report, the IAEA said the fourth cascade of same-class centrifuges has been installed but is yet to feed uranium. It added that Iran is now using 5 2022 centrifuges of this class to enrich uranium up to 5% purity. This is more than 3.67% allowed under the 2015 nuclear deal, but less than the 20% it is enriching at Fordow facility. Last month, Iran's atomic agency vowed that Tehran will install 1,000 such centrifuges at Natanz in less than 3 months. The global number of coronavirus cases has crossed 117 million, with the death toll approaching 2.6 million. The UK recorded its lowest number of infections and deaths in 5 months, with 65 fatalities and 4,700 cases overnight. Details in the following report.
As humanity gains some leeway against the coronavirus through vaccinations and restrictions, new variants seemed ready to undo the progress. A study indicates that China's Sinovac vaccine is effective against the variant first detected in Brazil. Meanwhile, in the United States, recent tests of wastewater samples in Houston show ongoing and uncontrolled community spread of the UK variant. In newly released guidelines, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says fully vaccinated Americans can visit other vaccinated people as well as small groups of unvaccinated people in some circumstances. And the World Health Organization says some countries should have listened more carefully when it declared a global health emergency in January 2020.
The fact that countries, I can fully understand maybe from a media perspective that a member of the public and others might not necessarily react to the declaration of a global public health emergency under the IHR by the Director General. But that is an agreement between all member states on this planet who agreed in law that this would represent the trigger to collective action in response for containment.
The European Union has criticized Belgium for extending a blanket ban on non-essential travel to and from the country. The UK has warned that reopening schools will impact infection rates and affect the roadmap for lifting restrictions. Italy has lifted a ban on the use of AstraZeneca vaccine for over 65s. Meanwhile, the Dutch Prime Minister says most restrictions must remain in place for now.
The most important news is that we will extend the current measures up until Tuesday, March 30, the evening curfew included, which will continue until the morning of Wednesday, March 31. For the 3 election days, Monday, March 15th, Tuesday, March 16th, and Wednesday, March 17th, there will be some exceptions, because of course a curfew cannot and must not stand in the way of free elections.
In Australia, Prime Minister Scott Morrison says the vaccination drive will finish by October despite initial delays. Meanwhile, Syrian media reported that President Bashar al-Assad and his wife have tested positive for the virus.
Meanwhile, in Pakistan has reported 54 more coronavirus-linked deaths overnight. The death toll has jumped to 13,281. Additionally, the Health Ministry reported more than 1,300 new cases over the last 24 hours. The ministry has so far confirmed over 593,000 cases countrywide. out of which more than 563,000 people have recovered. Meanwhile, the active cases are down to just a little over 16,000. The U.S. says Muslim visa applicants affected by the previous administration's ban can submit another application. President Joe Biden has overturned his predecessor Donald Trump's travel ban on 13 countries. The State Department says people refused a visa before 20th of January 2020 will have to pay the fee with new applications. Spokesperson Ned Price said those denied a visa after the date may seek reconsideration without the same. Meanwhile, the U.S. has also offered temporary protected status to thousands of Venezuelans for 18 months. This will shield them from deportation and allow them to work legally in the country. The U.S. Supreme Court has disposed of the last of the 3 cases brought by former President Donald Trump challenging his election loss. The court, without comment, rejected Trump's appeal challenging thousands of absentee ballots filed in Wisconsin. The court also turned away another election-related case filed by Trump ally Lin Wood. He had asked the justices to block the January 5th Senate runoff elections in Georgia. The court also sidestepped a chance to review a legal defense called qualified immunity, which has been used to shield police abusers. Last month, the court turned away Trump's other 2 appeals, a second Wisconsin challenge and one relating to voting in Pennsylvania. Jordan's king, Bahrain's crown prince, and the Malaysian prime minister have arrived in Saudi Arabia to discuss regional issues. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman received the leaders upon their arrival in the capital, Riyadh. In a tweet, Saudi Foreign Ministry said Crown Prince Salman and Jordan's King Abdullah reviewed bilateral ties. It said the leaders discussed cooperation in several fields and opportunities to serve mutual interest, and Bahrain's Crown Prince Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa commended Riyadh's role in serving the causes of the Muslim world. Meanwhile, Salman is set to sign multiple MOUs in his talks with Malaysian Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin today. The death toll in a series of explosions in Equatorial Guinea has risen to 98. The health ministry says over 600 people were injured in the blast at a military base in Bara City. In a statement, President Teodoro Obiang said the blasts were due to negligent handling of dynamite. The health ministry has asked for volunteers and blood donations due to the high number of casualties. The blasts come amid an economic shock due to the coronavirus pandemic and a drop in the price of crude oil. Lebanon's army chief has berated politicians for their handling of the crisis, warning of an unstable security situation. It comes after a week of protests in the country over a collapsing economy and paralyzed government. Army Chief General Joseph Aoun said its troops should not get sucked into the political deadlock. At a meeting with military commanders, the army chief stressed the right to peaceful protest. Earlier, in a meeting with top officials, President Michel Aoun ordered the security forces to clear roadblocks. The meeting at the presidency stipulated a crackdown on anyone violating monetary and credit laws. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has discussed the Cyprus issue with British Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Ankara's state media said the 2 leaders spoke on phone and explored ways to improve bilateral ties. During the conversation, Erdogan said Ankara welcomes London's efforts on the issues surrounding Cyprus. He described a 2-state solution as a win-win situation for all in terms of new opportunities for regional cooperation. Meanwhile, Johnson offered his condolences on the deaths of 13 Turkish citizens in Iraq and condemned killings by PKK terrorists. More news stories coming up after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Senegal, opposition leader Ousmane Sonko has called for large but peaceful anti-government protest. He spoke at a news conference in Dakar after authorities freed him on bail following days of violent demonstrations. Blaming President Macky Sall for his arrest, Sonko said the incumbent wants to sideline political rivals before the 2024 election. Meanwhile, Sall called for calm and an end to street protests that have rocked the country. Amnesty International says at least 8 people died in clashes between security forces and protesters in the past week. The Senegalese Red Cross reported some 235 demonstrators had been injured. Thousands of Paraguayans gathered around the Congress in the capital, Asuncion, for the 4th day against President Mario Abdo. The protesters have slammed the government's handling of COVID-19 amid a spike in nationwide cases. Despite impeachment calls, President Abdo appears to have enough support to see off any challenge. However, he has been forced to shuffle his cabinet in the interest of pacification. An impeachment trial is only possible with the support of a group led by former President Horacio Cartes within the ruling party. Paraguay's total number of infections has topped 169,000, with over 3,300 deaths. Nobel Peace Prize winner Malala Yousafzai has partnered with Apple to produce dramas, animation, and documentaries. The programs will air on the tech giant streaming service. In 2018, Apple teamed up with Yousafzai on Malala Fund that seeks to extend educational opportunities to girls across the globe. She joins big names Oprah Winfrey, Octavia Spencer, and Tom Hanks, who have also signed up for the Apple project. On the occasion of International Women's Day, Malala urged women around the world to take pride in their achievements. The 23-year-old graduated from Oxford University last year. Authorities have issued evacuation order after a dam on the Hawaiian island of Maui has been breached due to the heavy rains. In a tweet, Hawaii Governor David said people living in vicinity of Kalpakolo Dam should evacuate their homes. His authorities are still confirming the current status of the dam as heavy rain continues to pose a potential threat to the dam. He urged the residents to continue to stay out of the area until the danger has passed. French luxury fashion brand Christian Dior has given Little Red Riding an edgy makeover for its latest collection. Dior filled the Paris Fashion Week's runway with hooded capes and recreated a moonlit scene in the Versailles Palace Hall of Mirrors. More in this report. Due to the coronavirus restrictions, Dior skipped its traditional catwalk show for an online version filmed in a chateau outside Paris. The show featured black lettered dresses with puff sleeves, princess-style tulle gowns, and velvet coats among the winter styles. Maria Grazia Chiuri, the designer, sought to stamp an overt feminist stance on the designs.
My idea was more to give different outfits where the women can choose and to build their character in some way. I think that we are not to forget that fashion help women to build their personality, to also to represent themselves in different way. And I don't want to forget that fashion has to be also playful.
Earlier, luxury brand Givenchy also presented its latest collection as part of the virtual Paris Fashion Week. Models, some in voluminous furry coats and headwear covering almost their entire heads, walked the runway in Givenchy's video presentation. Starting in black and dark-colored garments, then later white and cream outfits with bursts of lavender, red, and tan. The show featured both male and female models that strutted in darkly lit venue and over puddles of water. The ready-to-wear Paris Fashion Week runs until 10th of March. Asia-Pacific markets are trading mixed after starting the week by struggling for gains in what is described as a fragile environment for stocks. In Australia, the benchmark ASX 200 retraced some of its earlier gains but still traded 0.39% higher. Japanese shares initially struggled after market open. However, Nikkei 225 erased early losses to trade up almost 0.3%. In Hong Kong, the Hang Seng Index advanced almost 1%. South Korea's benchmark Kospi fell for a fourth straight session, hitting its lowest in over 2 months with 2% decline. Chinese mainland shares also fell, with Shanghai Composite down 0.88% and the Shenzhen Component lower by 1.39%. In football, Chelsea continued their impressive turnaround as they beat Everton 2-0 in their Premier League encounter. The win leaves the Blues in fourth place with 50 points. German forward Kai Havertz played a key role in both goals on his return to the starting 11. The Blues secured a lead in the 31st minute when Everton defender Ben Godfrey turned a Havertz shot into his own net. Jorginho then doubled Chelsea's lead in the 64th minute when he scored from the spot. The Blues are now 2 points ahead of 5th place West Ham, who dominated Leeds United 2-0. Goals by Jesse Lingard and Craig Dawson maintained the Hammers' push for a top 4 finish in the league. And in Italian Serie A, leaders Inter Milan have strengthened their position as they beat Atlanta 1-0 to go 6 points clear atop league. The 7th league win in a row took Inter one step closer to a Serie A title in 11 years. Inter looked nervous in the first half and had goalkeeper Samir Handanovic to thank for making a fine save. Milan's Skriniar then fired them in front as he pounced on a loose ball from a corner just 9 minutes after the internal. However, Antonio Conte's side had to dig in defensively later on to secure the victory. The defeat leaves Atlanta in 5th place with 49 points, a point behind Roma. Now it's time to have a look at the weather update across the globe. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.